Hey there, toolaholics. Today we're going to mess around with the Alaskan chainsaw mill some more. And of course, I started my day by getting my bar stuck in the log. Luckily, I got this cool PV for moving logs around because I don't have any heavy equipment to do it with. And eventually managed to get the bar unstuck and get my log cut through. My plan here is to get the one end of the log set up on those other logs so that the log is sloped, and hopefully gravity will help me to push the chainsaw mill through the log, but it's proving to be a bit of a bitch to get it up there because it turns out that heavy things are heavy and slippery things are slippery, and the logs are all kind of wet even though they don't really look like it, and wet and slimy and slippery. So instead of rolling up the hill, it's rolling in place, which is very irritating, but I'll get it eventually. Lots of messing around here. This would have been a lot easier if I had some equipment, but I don't. And I got a pile of logs that were left behind by loggers in the woods, so I'm going to mess around with those. I'm just putting a little notch in there to kind of hold it, to stabilify this log a little bit. Now I got my log up into place, and cutting the end off so that I have a straight end to put my piece of 2x4 on to set my ladder on. And I'm going to move the other end around so that it's slightly off of the ground, because if it was right into the ground, then I run right into the ground when I get to the end. I probably didn't need to do this because I could have lifted it up later on when the log was lighter. So here you see I got my ladder all set up to make my first cut, and here we go. So I've got a brand new, well, not a brand new chain, but freshly sharpened chain that I sharpened with the cheap chain grinder I got from Princess Auto, which actually works fairly well, apparently. I'm useless at sharpening things, and I seem to have got a sharp chain here, so that's good. And we're just about through with the first cut, and making sure I put wedges in as I go so that my ladder doesn't shift on me and my cut doesn't shift and I don't get a curved cut. Just pulling off my blocks that I use to hold my ladder. You can see how to set the blocks and how to set the ladder in the other video I put up. I'll put a link to the end to it. And I got a pretty good first cut here, and just using my spacer blocks to reset for the depth so I can cut a 2-inch slab without the ladder in place. And gotta refill the chainsaw, both fuel and bar oil, because they're both about empty. And in a very short moment, we'll be making our second cut, which will be our first slab. All right, here we are with the second cut, which will be the first slab. And the plan to set the log on a bit of a downward angle to help with so that gravity will help move the chainsaw mill along did actually work. It also got me up off of the ground a little bit so that I wasn't having to bend over quite so much. And remembering to get my wedges in there so that I don't mess up my cut by having the log sag down. And it also keeps the slab that I've cut from pinching the bar on the back end. Just moving them along as I go instead of putting a whole set of new ones, because I didn't have a ton of them with me. And we're just about to get through here with the first slab cut, and soon and look at that, I got a great cut out of this fir log. So I'm about to make my third cut here, and this time I laid out my wedges in front of me on the log, since it's a nice flat surface and they should sit there, and then I can run into them with the chainsaw mill and just pick them up from in front of me on the log. Now, as you can see here, I'm being Captain Safety with my chainsaw pants on, and I got a helmet and ear protectors with a face shield that I didn't have the presence of mind to actually put in front of my face, but it's safer than usual. So I ran into a problem here with the bar, that push bar that runs across the chainsaw mill kept vibrating itself out loose. I ended up, after I finished this cut, I ended up tightening it down a whole bunch more. It just tightens down with the wing nuts, and hand tightening wasn't enough. I needed to take a pair of vice grips and dent into the bar a little bit to keep them to stay still, and that pretty much took care of it. And as you can see, this cut's going slightly slower because the chain is starting to get dull, but it's still cutting not too bad if it hadn't been for the bar falling out. And there we go. Nice, straight, another slab cut. So I'm about to make my next cut here. And I probably should have switched out to a sharp chain here. I think I'm really only getting about 2 or 3 cuts before the chain needs to be sharpened or swapped out. I do actually have a second sharp chain with me, but the problem is I am lazy. So I didn't realize till probably about halfway through this cut that I really needed to switch out to a sharper chain. You can see that my chips are getting smaller and smaller. They're not really chips anymore. It's pretty much dust, but it's still cutting through anyways, and not too long, at 8 times speed, I'll have my third slab cut. Having a dull chain on the saw also probably isn't the best for the saw. The saw has to work a whole lot harder to cut through the log and has to run constantly for a longer period of time, and it's more work to push it through too. So definitely need to switch out the chain probably every 2 cuts in the future. And I cut the rest of the way through. Flip that over. We got another nice slab cut. And because I'm particularly lazy, I didn't bother to switch the chain. So I'm making my final cut here for my final slab with the dull chain, and as you can see by how easily the chips or sawdust is blowing away mostly, I'm getting mostly dust and not nice big chips like what you want to be spitting out the back of your saw. Although using ripping chain and the fact that I'm cutting across the grain the way that I am does naturally make the chips a lot smaller than if you're doing a cross cut with the saw. Even though this is sped up to 8 times speed, you can really see that it's struggling a lot more to get through and taking a lot longer because some lazy bastard decided not to pull the saw out of the Alaskan mill and swap out to the sharp chain or run a file over the chain and sharpen it. So in the future, definitely I think need to swap out for sharp chain every 2 or 3 cuts. If I had a sponsor, this would be a good time to tell you about it while I struggle to cut through the rest of this slab cut, which is really taking a long time because it was really a mistake to not swap out the chain. Definitely a case of hurry up and slow down. I didn't want to spend the time to swap the chain out because, well, I just didn't want to take the time for that, and I ended up probably taking much longer than swapping out would have taken me by cutting slow. And as you can see, I got some stuff in the way here at the end, but it was a lot easier to move the log around once it was a lot smaller. So next time I'll know that. And I got my slabs all cut, and I'm just going to load them into my truck here and take them away so that I can get them all stacked and stickered. As you can see, I'm definitely getting the hang of this chainsaw milling stuff and making less mistakes, but I'm still making mistakes and learning from them as I go. So don't be afraid to just try something and make a few mistakes, because that's how you learn. That's how I do anyways. If you've enjoyed this video, then like and subscribe to my channel so you can see more of my stupid crap that I mess around with. If you think I'm an idiot, then say so in the comments, or if you have any questions, then ask those in the comments too. Hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching.